About midway through each month, I try to do a video where I cover all of the titles that interest me. September, huge month, so let's dive into it. If you like these, I would love for you to subscribe, check out the Patreon, what have you. It helps, and as you guys know, no sponsored BS. Let's begin. First up, Baby Steps. This comes out September 8th for PS5 and PC. You play as Nate, an unemployed adult baby with the hidden mutant ability of locomotion, forced to manually control each leg with your controller sticks or buttons. So it's basically like a Reddit user, except he isn't so obese he can't still walk. The vibe, mostly mountaintops, surreal landscapes, and a soundtrack built from over 420 adaptive beats that sync to your stumbling. The game isn't about combat or enemies or even dying. There's no health bar, there's no fail screen. When you fail or fall, you just continue falling, rolling down the slope like a sad burrito until you end up somewhere else. It's weirdly freeing. It's like Death Stranding if Sam Porter Bridges was drunk, pantless, and lost the baby somewhere. Or, shit, maybe this is a game where it's a sequel to Death Stranding and it's the baby walking around. Either one. The freedom here is fantastic. It's something gentler than the prior games from these developers. Sure, you can torture yourself by insisting on climbing Everest 1 inch at a time, but the game doesn't force anything on you. It's skill-based as a playground, not a medieval torture device. And when you finally nail the rhythm, when your left stick, right stick tango becomes actual locomotion, it's sort of low-key beautiful. And the main character's floppy ragdoll ass has basically been animated by the world's worst animators. And it's even got improvised cutscenes voiced and mocapped by the devs themselves. Keep the whole thing feeling like a stoner sketch, and maybe a lot of gamers will go to it, and it seems like they have. Every single time I've seen somebody play this, it seems like they are having an absolute blast. Little history lesson, Baby Steps first popped up in like 2023 at a Devolver showcase, and like many other games got delayed for a little bit. Now it's officially set to again land September 8th on PS5 and Steam. With the demo already making the rounds, you can check it out. Especially if you're sort of like me, where you don't always need a game where failure is punished. Sometimes progress doesn't need to be measured by kill counts, and your biggest enemy, hey, it's your own coordination. But not all games are lacking enemies, and the next one for sure isn't. That's Hell Is Us. It's coming out September 4th for pretty much everything other than Switch. Hell Is Us is a third-person action adventure developed by Rogue Factor, and it's set in a fictional nation, a country fractured by civil war and altered by a supernatural disaster known as the Calamity. And yes, most of the games I'm going to talk about in this video sound like hard rock bands who ask ChatGPT to name their albums. The player assumes control of a former United Nations peacekeeper who deserts his post in order to return home and search for his missing parents. That's it. That's the game. I'm just joking. But when he gets home, he ends up finding out that it's been haunted by these things called the Hollow Walkers, creatures that are immune to conventional weaponry, pissy beyond belief, and rising up due to whatever evils happened there. Hell Is Us definitely leans on the up-close combat. Nothing kills a spiritual, empty ghost bad guy faster, like smashing him in the face with axes, swords, polearms, and weapons heavy enough they look like somebody took a gutter off an old home and just hammered it into something freakish. Every weapon has its own style, its own moves, its combos, and timing, and of course, each one sucks a little bit away from your stamina. And another thing about the stamina and about Hell Is Us that could surprise you or make you go, not quite sure this is for me, is that your health, when it goes down, brings your stamina down capped with it. They're like afterburners of an apocalyptic jet powered by the same gas tank. The only way to raise it is to heal by collecting spirit power from enemies during attacks. It's a very risk versus reward mechanic, tying healing to your level of aggression. One part of this that's interesting is that once enemies are killed, they supposedly do not respawn, reinforcing the sense of everything being pretty permanent and hopefully encouraging some exploration. You also, probably in reflection of the current technology level of today, have a little drone that peters around with you that can be used for various different actions. One place where Hell Is Us is rocking it and has some really good new ideas is that there isn't really maps or counters or indicators. They want the entire game to be based on player plattering and navigatable by environmental sound and construction, NPC dialogue and explanations, as well as other senses. So really think of player plattering as being something along the lines of multiple senses giving you the information you need, like platters on a hard drive. Clues are embedded in offhand remarks from characters, visual landmarks, and subtle audio signals, and they're hoping that'll require players to really pay attention to detail and interpret the world actively. I've covered No HUD gaming before. I think the first video I did was almost 12 years ago on No HUD. I'm a huge fan of No HUD gaming. I think that the jury is really done on that one. We found that especially when it comes to no HUD gaming, gamers have a tendency to remember a great deal more of the geography, and I'm a huge fan of that, as long as it's not lacking information and it offers complete storytelling, condensed and actually informative when it comes to quest information so that locations can be found and you don't get lost. especially since the devs have stated that the world design and aesthetic draws on movies like Annihilation. Expect some twisted shit, combining some surreal imagery, some weird locations, and a lot of creepy-ass looking monsters. The focus on the mood seems rather high in this game. We'll just have to see if this one nails it, but I'm all for a no-HUD, up-close, smashing the shit out of spirit enemies, post-apocalyptic game that caps your stamina. All right, seriously, not that last bit, but all the rest. The next up is a sequel to a game you've probably never heard of, and that's Borderlands 4. This is September 12th for pretty much everything. I think in the hollowed corridors of Gearbox's ambition, Borderlands 4 must have been an easy sell for a sort of a tough problem. Borderlands 3 landed like a wet turd thrown against a hot building. And I would say while Tiny Tina's adventure somewhat fixed the issues of the Prime title, the question really does remain, can the cel-shaded, steeped in 13-year-old humor co-op shooter capture people's attention again and not feel ancient? We're going to find out again on September 12th. So this is on a new planet, a seamless world devoid of loading screens and built to deliver what they say is more diverse environments than all of the previous games combined. Borderlands 4 promises also the deepest RPG systems the saga's ever dared to show. For example, one of the characters, a Vault Hunter, had something like 87 passive abilities, capstone augmentations, and branching trees that are all really meant to allow for each gamer to play some type of character that's completely unique from somebody else. It also promises the largest number of weapon combinations in any of their games, which borders on the billions, with a new licensed part system that blends manufacturer traits into single arms. Now, is that hyperbole? Yeah, possibly. But let's be honest, having a gun that shoots firing bullets that circle around to re-hit enemies that they missed while singing an opera song may be the coolest thing ever. By the way, that last bit is not real. But what is real is a huge improvement to the movement. Shooting, scooting, and looting through Borderlands has always felt pretty good to me, but gliding, double jumping, dodging, grappling, riding hover bikes, and changing some of the way the game feels, and having you move across dynamically weathered biomes that won't have loading screens is all a big improvement to me. Now, somehow Randy Pitchford's always been a bit of a magician, disappearing every time somebody finds a USB or says something on Twitter that sounds like he has a ton of other USB devices no one wants to see. But the hints that he's dropped do sound like the game could be awesome, and it already seems to be a bit tonally different than the prior titles, which I sort of like. It seems to skew a little darker. I'm all for a co-op bullet carnival as well. You have 4-player online across PC and consoles, plus local split screen on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. When I think of Borderlands 4, it's almost a monument to creative depth and systemic fragility. It's Gearbox's siren call to fans, an offering of vast buildcraft, open worlds, crafted at the edge of institutional knowledge that seems like the game and its entire presentation has somehow aged in dog years compared to the people playing it. They just start to feel creaky. Borderlands 4, it does sound like they're doing some adjustments, changing some things, and we'll just have to see if the humor and all of the narrative ends up tying off, because I do know that a lot of people play the Borderlands games overall for the actual story and the characters. Hey, there's people out there that do that. At least that's what I've been told. But regardless, it'll probably have some sweet-ass shooting. And another game that's probably going to have some sweet-ass shooting, maybe just one guy, is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, The Order of the Giants DLC. I'm excited for this one, September 4th, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. In a year thick with sequels and, I would say, franchise expansions, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle arrives as more than really downloadable content. It's a very focused continuation of the story. Set alongside the timeline of the main game, this expansion, it doesn't really aim for escalation of the original story. Instead, it digs deeper, literally and thematically, into the ideas that are already introduced in the main title. This is, of course, developed by Machine Games under Lucasfilm's games and published by Bethesda. The story follows Indiana Jones as he's pulled back into the fold by Father Riki, a priest hiding more than he reveals, and what begins as a search for a Roman artifact turns into something more complex. It involves myths and mysteries, ancient belief systems, and the ideological ghosts of the entire empire in the past. Rome isn't just a backdrop here, it's actually a foundation of the story. But that does mean a little bit of reuse. It revisits and reuses the systems that the Great Circle established. You still have your whip traversal, puzzle solving, and the balance of stealth and combat, but it brings those into darker spaces. Catacombs and tunnels of Rome offer very little light, more hazards, and environments that feel more like mazes than the prior game did. Combat is a bit less flashy and more deliberate in this title, and I just feel like that fits, and the DLC, I hope, continues that. Mechanically, there's some refinements here. The expansion builds on the base game's strengths, and also some of its enemies. The original order, introduced earlier in the game, becomes a more present threat here, not just as enemies, but as a group driven by belief rather than, let's say, villainy. And one thing to remember about this, the Order of the Giants is included if you have premium and collector editions at no additional cost. It doesn't feel like a store add-on, really. It's a continuation, like I said, meant for those that are really already invested in the world or the characters or just jumping in who want to play it all. It's not one of those games that locks the DLC after you're level 60 and you have all the upgrades. Gotta say, I'm really excited for this one. I enjoyed the hell out of the original game, and any DLC that returns me back to this time frame is awesome. I do want to say this. I wish they would add a Troy Baker mode to this game where Troy Baker just did all the sound effects and everybody else's voice. He just did everything. So he's out there doing the wind, and he's like, he's out there shooting guns. He's like, bang, 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 bang. Might as well, because I feel like Troy Baker is literally every character now in every game. So have him do the sound effects too. And here we go with another game that's got a DLC, but not really a DLC, sort of a standalone. Started as a DLC, though, and that's Dying Light the Beast, and this comes out September 19th. It's set in the fog-covered region of Castor Woods. And if you think to yourself, man, I feel like KARAK said this before, it's because I think I've had to put this into at least 2 other videos because they keep delaying the damn thing. But the Beast drops you into those. You don't have the city skylines or all of the drama in this place. You have thick forests, narrow roads, and more of a sense of isolation. The game world's, of course, smaller than either 1 or 2, but that's intentional. It's also got dynamic weather and a day-night cycle that returns. Also some vehicles that you can drive around off-road. So if you like to smash some zombies while in a little tiny dune buggy, you will be able to do it in this game. Now, it centers on Kyle Crane returning from his presumed death in the original game, and it also introduces to him a beast mode mechanic. Because of all the heinous shit that's happened to him, he has the ability to drop into this beast mode, temporarily amplifying all of his powers. And it's not just for gameplay or just smashing people. It also is supposed to be narratively driven by the character's uneasy place where he finds himself now, which is in sort of the anti-hero, bad guy beast kind of spot. Gameplay builds off the core strengths of the original series. You have your parkour, your combat, your exploration, but this time the systems are stripped of a lot of the excess. There's no branching narrative in this game, no different faction reputations, anything like that. It's just one man, one setting, one path forward. And it's approach that I think feels more in line with Dying Light 1 and how this could be a DLC for that almost versus Dying Light 2. Also, they've stated that stealth is more effective in this game than it was in the prior games. Also, firearms now feel heavier and great deal more damage is done. And in another nod to environmental storytelling here is that a lot of the exploration you do is less about loot quality and quantity and more about looking around in context to the locations and exploring. I love that idea, and especially for a DLC to make things feel different, like let's say Atomic Heart's DLC. And I love these kind of adjustments to the DLC to where they feel like something that really does further the story and also adjusts the actual gameplay. That's pretty stupendous. Also, for returning fans, I would say this is a bit of a moment of closure. For example, if you look at it, Kyle Crane's story always felt a bit unfinished. His return here, though, isn't really a power trip. It's more like what happens when you realize the infection hasn't been cured, the hero hasn't been redeemed, the beast treats the world like a thesis on destruction, and you have to figure out a way through it and follow that story from start to finish. Also, the lack of those branching narratives, I think, is actually going to help this a great deal. And while Dying Light the Beast is definitely a smaller game, I think it's going to be a sharper one. It may not be a rewrite of the franchise back to 1, but I'm fine with that. As somebody who actually didn't hate 2, I like the idea of just branching off on these. We'll just have to see when it comes out. And let's hope it comes out this month, because damn, how many times am I going to have to talk about this game before I can finally review it? If you don't like your dark and dire, well, let's check out the next game, Tokyo Underground Killer. So this is one of those games when you look at the trailer, you think, ah, yes, this is exactly what would happen if Hotline Miami snorted Blade Runner and they got lost in some back alley after 3 a.m. karaoke. It's the latest fever dream from Phoenix Game Productions, and the PC version is dropping September 15th with console ports allegedly on the way. You play as Kobayashi, a Shinjuku vampire, which sounds less like a codename and more like a rejected Netflix spinoff, but trust me, it works. He's an assassin slicing his way through Tokyo's underground while tripping balls in a neon-drenched nightmare of demons, Yakuza goons, and more neon than Cyberpunk 2077's lying marketing department. As you go through the world, you go from different districts that you've seen before, but they all get reimagined as hell zones where reality is optional, violence mandatory. Cutscenes are done comic style by Hans Heavy Metal Hanzo, which adds to the exact level of, did I just accidentally walk into a late night heavy metal rerun? Gameplay, imagine Doom Eternal had a baby with Devil May Cry, but you're stuck in first-person mode with only katana and way too much confidence. Combat is fast, it's bloody, basically designed to make you feel like an anime protagonist. It hangs its hat on what's called blood skills. 10 supernatural powers let you do things like summon a flame tornado, teleport around, or drain life like everybody's a giant juice box. It looks stylish, it's over the top, and it's probably going to break your mouse. But not all blood ballet and neon migraines is here. There's a hub here where you can go around, you can decorate your little apartment, you can play some mini games, because nothing says legendary supernatural assassin like picking out some throw pillows. I like the idea of this. It grounds it a little bit and makes it so that the next time you unleash a fiery tornado, it doesn't feel like, oh, that's just a Sunday. It also has up to 2 hours of synthwave and industrial grind, so if you like that, it probably perfectly fits the game. Bonus, it's also got full voice acting in English and Japanese. And the best part of this, it's $10, $10 friggin' dollars. For a game that looks like it should cost at least double that, hey, that's awesome. It's either a sign that Phoenix Game Productions is criminally undervalued or they're pulling the boldest Steam sale maneuver ever. Console ports are planned, as I said before, which in indie speak means when we can finish duct taping it together because Unity sucks. Every damn thing I've seen of this game looks awesome. I love these style of titles. Always fun to jump in there, and let's be honest, samurai swords and neon, that's actually a combo that's pretty hard to beat. Speaking of another game that's slightly Japanese influence, and by slightly I mean a ton, that's Silent Hill F. It begins, as all tragic tales do, in the quiet, crackling silence of a decaying shrine overgrown with red spider lilies and forgotten prayers. Silent Hill F, stylized in low case, as if whispering its own name because it's too scared to talk loudly, comes out September 25th. This is made by Neobards Entertainment, and it's actually the first fully original canon-bound Silent Hill game in over a decade. And they're promising to bring us Silent Hill series in a nutshell, but in a new location. A mix of horror and psychological autopsy, always trying to find out what scared the player to death so they can report it back and see what to do in the next game. Gone, though, are the haunted Midwestern towns, the rusted industrial corridors of the past. In their place stands a fictional mountain village steeped in 1960s Japanese sensibilities. Silent Hill F is not a love letter to the franchise. Feels a little bit like a eulogy. At the center of the game, the main character is a teenage girl condemned to this fog-choked street, sanity-draining rituals, and I would say this one is still steeped in survival, but it has a bit more to do with confrontation as well, and the traditional aspects to see different ideals and ideologies that 1960s Japan actually ends up thrusting, because let's be honest, every Silent Hill game is a lot about psychology. But there will be combat, or what passes for combat in Silent Hill, which is about what you can find, really. Iron pipes, broken sickles, a random 2x4, they're all as good as a now overused katana, especially against enemies that drain the main character's brand new sanity meter. Yes, Silent Hill F has a sanity meter. Monsters and events lower it, but you can also use it. For example, activating something called focus mode, which slows time down and allows for you to move around, maybe even escape, maybe pull off a perfect headshot, but it bleeds away the main character's grip on reality. No word yet on what happens when all of that goes all the way down. Speaking of down, I do love that they've changed the location. Neobard's roots in this world and the specificity is high. That's something the developers have taken on. They actually went and investigated different Japanese districts to make sure the feeling of the old, ancient-ass, steeped in tradition town was just right, and moved away from the underground coal seam fires in the original game. I've always liked that about these titles. I'm not always a Silent Hill fan, but I like the idea of sort of how they take something from history and put it into their games. Well, maybe not always, but when they do. The big thing here, though, of course, is going to be the change to everything, the stamina, and sometimes there's heavy bit of action that I've seen some people not necessarily be happy with. But when it comes down to it, I do like that they change things up. And I've really found that the Silent Hill games, at least to me, have always felt different. I've always not necessarily loved them, but I can't say that almost any other game has the feel of Silent Hill, except for, other Silent Hill games. I expect a ton of walking, a ton of looking around corners, trying to figure out what that sound is. Is it something shambling or just an old-ass building falling around a schoolgirl's head? Both are equally horrifying, and I'm excited to check it out. And the next up is one I have checked out already. If you get a chance, look at the preview, and that's Cronos, the New Dawn, coming out by Bloober Team, and this one is September 5th. Cronos frames itself less as a traditional horror game and more as a quiet, sort of unsettling reflection, but as somebody who played it, I'd say it's definitely a traditional horror survival game. It's set in an alternative version of Poland, now called New Dawn, after an event only known as The Change. See, I told you, heavy metal album names. The game follows a lone protagonist that's just called the Traveler, and they have a terrible helmet. Instead of crossing locations, they move through breaks in time, collecting remnants of lives interrupted, as well as the souls or essences of those around the game world that are important people. And that basically means you kill them for skills. The game leans very heavy on the genre elements. You got some body horror, light sci-fi, but it ties its core systems to its story. For example, the new merge mechanic exemplifies this. Enemies not properly destroyed reform into tougher variants. Killing without care ends up carrying huge consequences. Even victory feels temporary, because if you don't light the bodies of the enemies on fire, well, the other enemies can use them as armor. Combat is very slow and considered, be aware of that. Also, supplies are limited. Encounters are meant to feel very tense, not necessarily overpowering or empowering, but it definitely echoes, I would say, Resident Evil, The Medium, Dark Souls, all sort of mixed into one, as well as some Dead Space. Every mechanic, like I said, is tied into the overall atmosphere, from unreliable HUDs, ambient audio that reinforces those themes of exhaustion and fear and being alone, and mystery. The setting also anchors all of that. Bloober Team has modeled much of the environment from this world on an actual real city, so that means you have some brutalist designs from Poland cities, factories, rail yards, housing blocks. They're all there. They all feel really worn down and hollowed out by time. It never directly addresses modern events, or at least it didn't in the couple of hours I played. It doesn't even really always go out of its way to explain the change. That's the feeling of mystery that the game had. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed my couple hours with it. While you could say, yes, it's a third-person action, horror, survival game, there's a lot of inventory Tetris there. The ability of the game world to be changed by the merge, as well as some of the altering you can do of the world by reversing time on destroyed areas so that you can get across them, but thus opening more spots for the enemies to get across and kill you, was actually worth taking a look at, and I'm glad I did. That one's coming out soon. We'll have to see how it does. From deep, dark, and dire to, well, just sort of deep and weird, and that's Demonschool. This is September 3rd. There's something profoundly human about the promise of a semester of school. It's a finite time in which you might grow, love, get bullied, bully, and fight off some demons. It's just normal. And Demonschool treats it normally. It's all wrapped and built in that fragile premise, wrapping the familiar cycle of student life in barbed wire of cosmic horror and some calculus classes. Thankfully, it's not just another Persona ripoff, though. It's a procedural tactical combat game with maybe a bit of dating and one mysterious goth girl. It's developed by Necrosoft Games, and Demonschool really, it feels like a tactical RPG XCOM mixed with Persona. It comes out September 3rd on pretty much every single device. At the center is Faye, a freshman of unknowable potential and buried bloodlines. Every single student is always special, you know, the Harry Potter syndrome. They attend a university on an island that seems stitched together from abandoned truths, institutional rot, and a lot of questionable shit. When not facing the bosses of teen acne and possible Facebook nude shame, Demonschool's tactical system, I think, feels very familiar, but in a good way. Every battle unfolds across two distinct phases. You have your planning and your execution. The planning phase allows players to rewind, reposition, and choreograph all of the party's moves, in some ways a bit like Disgaea in form. The social mechanics run deeper than I actually expected. Players manage time across a week-based academic calendar, as we've seen in other games, dividing their days between lectures, battles, side quests, fishing trips, and I'm sure no doubt a huge number of socially awkward moments with like up to 15 companions. We all have that one friend who talks just a bit too loud about last weekend's amazing D&D game where they showed up dressed in pounded down Campbell's soup cans. That's the social bits of Demonschool. These aren't throwaway NPCs, though. They're nodes in this web of narrative construction as they unlock different combat options and emotional payoffs. So you know when I said it's not just a Persona ripoff, there's still a lot of Persona in this game. But hey, any game that is about killing demons, it's about debt, delusionment, and probably failing a class or two. It's a game where somehow social clumsiness is going to be about as shameful as ignoring the enemy's ability to just shrug off your attacks, and both are probably going to end up in your death. I like the look of it, that 2D/3D kind of look. It's got an older school feel kind of vibe to it. That actually intrigued me on this one and looked different than some of the other games. I do like the idea of this one, and I actually want to check it out. And that's Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile. Instead of 1930s, they're hurling the main character face first into the 1970s. So you got like disco balls and flared trousers and a color palette that looks like a lava lamp. Death on the Nile is September 25th, and it's on the PS5, Xbox Series S and X, the Switch, and PC on Steam, Epic, and Good Old Games. I love detective games. I've loved the Sherlock games, and I've loved a couple of the prior ones by these guys. You ping-pong between the main legend himself as well as a new side character called Jane Royce. This is a brand new private detective that's sort of the whatness to your Sherlocking main character. Travel into different cities. This is an investigation game first, though. It's not a hidden object safari. You're going to be rooting around crime scenes, turning over ashtrays, eavesdropping from behind velvet ropes, and trailing suspects through party lights and reconstructing scenes everywhere. The structure, I would say, leans very heavily on a replication or their idea of the Mind Palace we see in the Sherlock games. Actually very tactile here, though. A 2D puzzle workshop where clues don't just sit in a journal waiting to be clicked. They have to be slotted and associated, and it's a little bit like them just saying, hey, you two go just build that IKEA bookshelf of truth together and pray you didn't misplace one of the dowels. Backing all this up, you also have a mind map for visual clue herding and your conspiracy board cork wall as well. One cool thing I always love about these games is when you go and investigate, everything starts to change and wrinkle up. You get contradictions between characters, and motives that seem small at first turn out to be something massive. That's what happens here. You also end up jumping between the two characters as you do these investigations, and the narrative branches aren't just like your 3-button same answer kind of thing. Nothing here screams like you're going to actually end up being forced into anything. You're going to have to put the ideas together on your own. So basically, murder on a boat, 2 people in bell bottoms, and a studio swinging for the fences. I hope they do well. I actually love the idea of this. I'm a huge fan of detective games, so I'm looking forward to it. Next up, NBA 2K26. Game looks pretty cool. But one that really has caught my attention is House of Tesla. This is the kind of game that sounds like it was pitched in a fever dream at 2 in the morning after somebody ended up getting electrified because they tried to grab the toast out of the toaster. It's from Blue Brain Games, the folks who made House of Da Vinci. For example, that's the series where you solved elaborate clockwork puzzles while Leonardo silently judged you for not understanding how gears work. The whole thing unfolds in a first person as a puzzle adventure. It's got 6 chapters, about 10 hours of gameplay, though if you're like me, add an extra hour for the part where you just spin around muttering, what in the hell am I supposed to do right now with this glowing tube? So you imagine Myst, but instead of pulling levers in foggy ruins, you're Ghost Tesla conducting EDM concerts in your own haunted lab. This time, they've traded in gears and Renaissance cosplay for oxidized copper, humming generators, and big-brained myths of Nikolai Electric Jesus Tesla. This is coming out September 23rd on PC, with console and mobile versions coming in sometimes later. What's the hook, though? Well, you're basically Tesla wandering around your busted-ass facility, a place that was supposed to beam free wireless electricity around the world, but somehow instead ended up as a metaphorical and literal lightning rod for what could have been. And you're trying to get everything put back together. Visually, the demo Blue Brain dropped earlier this year already just nailed it. Rusted pipes, storm-soaked brickwork, and that ever-present low hum of electricity that always feels dangerous. It's industrial gothic without going full Bioshock. They're going for a haunted science museum kind of feel to this when you're doing the puzzles, and I love that. Flashes that go back in time show you Tesla's highs and lows, and collectible documents add sort of a bit of weird flavor to everything as you read them and try to figure out the puzzles by doing the homework on the side. Now, because this is Blue Brain, there's basically no real hand-holding. Their design philosophy has always been figure it out, nerd, which is great if you love puzzles, but maybe a bit less great if you're hoping for a gentle stroll through an electrified escape room. Fans of House of Da Vinci will feel pretty much right at home. Everyone else should prepare for a bit of mild initiation ritual, which involves staring at pipes until you feel stupid and then suddenly very, very smart. And you'd think at this time, hey, it'd be all wrapped up, but it's not even close. Firefighting Simulator Ignite. You probably saw this, I believe, in the last day or so on one of the events at Gamescom. Firefighting Simulator Ignite, it's hitting out on September 9th. Which means somehow on that day, we're getting the most unironic version of playing with fire in video game history. Same crew who gave us Construction Sims, where you could spend like 40 minutes driving a backhoe, and the game somehow made you feel like celebrating a single grave-sized hole with a fucking Super Bowl win kind of celebration, has now teamed up to make a new game. This is launching on PC, Steam, and Epic, and both of the Xbox Series X and S, and the PlayStation 5. Now, this is not an arcadey firefighter mini game where you douse cartoon flames with a super soaker. It is a sim in depth. This is fire porn, complete with smoke, flashovers, grease fires, and the occasional, oh shit, the building exploded because you didn't vent the roof fast enough. Every element, you got your heat, your water, smoke, has been programmed to behave like it's auditioning for Discovery Channel's Disasters documentary. If you thought Sims house fires were stressful, wait until your co-op buddy hoses down a live electrical panel and your entire team gets vaporized. Or hell, if you're on the other side, maybe you just delay fighting a fire, you know, just to see what happens, or to entertain your pals, because the game also has 4-player multiplayer. You've got hose management, ventilation. Hose management sound really dirty. Cutting through walls. You've got dragging civilians out of suffocating apartments. It's all here, and it all demands that you act like you paid attention at least one time in a safety class. You'll be rolling around in style. You have a full fleet of real American fire trucks, including some ones that I don't even know the names of. But because it's a simulator game, of course it's in here. And of course, you even have your axes and special named equipments, because an axe called the Marauder supposedly cuts through a door better. Now, when you're not risking your pixelated life, you and your friends can hang out at the fire station hub. This is where you're going to be doing training. You're going to expect trucks, probably wash them, playing missions, maybe haze a little bit, and of course, pick which of the 8 playable characters you want to send into hell in a different outfit. Think of it like a firefighter clubhouse, except instead of foosball and cheap beer, you're practicing how not to die in a flashover. The best part of this is that they've actually ended up adding modding to not only PC, but consoles in the version of Mod.io support, which means if you've ever wanted to design your own Nightmare Inferno, like, say, a Taco Bell kitchen fire caused by some mismade Baja Blast, you can do that. And then you can force your friends to play it. This is either the best idea or the worst idea, but I'm leaning towards best, because nothing sustains a sim community like chaos from all the fans making crazy shit. And of course, it wouldn't be a modern sim launch without a bunch of additions. You should check those out, because some are premium. They give you different things, including a Dalmatian version, which I don't know. I always feel bad, because that means that the dog that you actually have isn't cool enough. I noticed that in Hunter Call of the Wild, but you should check those out. The simulator genre just continues to explode. It's sort of like the houses that I'm going to fail at stopping fires in. I love that. And I don't want to haul a giant hose up a ladder in a neighborhood where the arsonist is probably laughing like a maniac while watching me try to fight it. But I will absolutely play that in a game. Firefighter Simulator Ignite looks like the kind of game where half the time you're playing deadly serious, white-knuckle firefighting, and the other half you're watching your buddy accidentally smash through a wall into the wrong apartment and setting off a gas leak. It is just awesome fun. Artic Awakening. It's sort of what happens when Firewatch goes on an Alaskan bender and realizes it has to babysit a robot instead of a forest ranger with a walkie-talkie. And yeah, that's all real. Goldfire Studios has been cooking this one up for 5 years, which in indie dev is basically 2 presidential terms and 3 Unity updates that they tried to make you pay for. It is gonna be a full release. It was originally planned for a Steam episodic. It's for your PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and it comes out September 18th. So you play as Kai, a pilot doing your standard supply run, when the Arctic decides, nope, and the plane gets shredded mid-flight. Your co-pilot Donovan ghosts you, and you're left stranded in the wilderness with Alfie, a court-mandated therapy robot who sounds like a sarcastic Alexa that's been through a lot of couples counseling that hasn't worked out. From there, it's survival, mystery, and the kind of hidden secrets beneath the snow setup that screams that someone on the dev team probably read At the Mountains of Madness. Here's a twist, though. This isn't one of the survival sims where you're juggling meters for hunger, cold, or, oops, I forgot to put on my socks. Goldfire decided that they're just too classy for that. Survival here is strictly narrative. Your choices, your dialogue, your relationship with a character, all of it shapes how the story unfolds. You're not crafting a campfire with sticks in desperation. You're managing connection. So yeah, the Dark Souls for introverted gamers. A lot of people are going to fail that one. Visually, the game embraces the stylized emotional realism look, which I think in dev speak means don't expect photorealistic snowflakes, but damn if it won't make you feel cold anyway. The Arctic just isn't a backdrop as well or a wallpaper. It's alive, it shifts, it's dangerous, and narratively you have to consistently watch out for everything that's going on. I don't know if this one will stick the landing like so many other games in the walking genre, but I dig them. Vanishing Ethan Carter, I loved. Firewatch, I loved. There's a lot of titles in this genre that have been big improvements to me as the years have gone on, as somebody who especially grew up playing titles like Myst. So I'm really excited to get my hands on this one in the next couple days. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Legacy of the Forge. Yeah, it's DLC, but it's also for a massive, well-beloved game. Comes out September 9th, and it's coming across all the different systems. Look, we knew Warhorse wasn't just going to plop out Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and pat Henry on the head and ride off into the medieval sunset. This is a studio that treats expansions like DLC buffets. There's always another course. And the latest entree is Legacy of the Forge, a narrative-driven add-on where Henry stops stabbing people long enough to hammer some metal and cry about his dad. Real character growth, folks. So that means suiting up as a well over maximum capacity armored Henry and going back out into the excellent world of Kingdom Come. The setup? Gutenberg again, because if you're going to simulate medieval Europe with the fidelity of a grad student's thesis project, you might as well just keep using the same set pieces. Here, Henry inherits the charred wreckage of his father Martin's old forge, otherwise known as Tragic Tutorial Dad, and decides he's finally ready to bang steel like a grown-up. Of course, this isn't just hammer, smash, repeat. It's tied to the proper guild progression arc. You're working commissions, juggling customer requests, and slowly proving yourself until the town admits you're not just some filthy peasant with an anvil fetish, unlike me, who probably still won't be able to do a single horseshoe correctly. In classic Warhorse fashion, the system is not half-assed. Blacksmithing isn't just a single menu, it's a whole damn loop. Henry's going to take bespoke requests, from your everyday sword for higher blade to some villagers' deranged demand for a spiky shovel that doubles as a back scratcher. Do the job well, earn money, gain rep, mess it up, and you'll probably be mocked by the locals. Progression feeds into customization, which is where things get almost strangely obsessive. The DLC introduces a home building system that they've stated has over 136 million possible combinations. Yes, million. Warhorse basically slipped the Sims into medieval Bohemia and decided, you know what, that's fine. This isn't just plop a flower pot on a shelf for vibes either. Decor choices actually are going to matter. Build Henry's space up from a minimalistic monk cell, and maybe he's more focused on craft. Load the forge with gaudy banners, fancy rugs, and some kind of weird workbench, and suddenly you're forging swords faster than a Dark Souls speedrunner. It's a rare RPG decor system that's gameplay focused, and aesthetics are not divorced from those. Legacy of the Forge was teased back in, I think, January as part of a post-launch roadmap officially shown at Gamescom opening night, and it's slotted in as the second paid expansion after Brushes with Death. If you've got the expansion pass or the gold edition, congratulations, you already paid for it. I love Warhorse's design around the DLC. It always ends up throwing something different at you, and this is not only different, but huge. That customization. It's the medieval pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of fantasy, except your boots are probably covered in horse shit and forged from 6 different menus of iron smelting. Hey, that seems to be a lot of people's thing. So there you go. The DLC drops September 9th. Better start planning your medieval color palettes right now. And honestly, that's just some of the games that were on my list. We had Sonic Crossworlds was on here. You have Hirogami is on here. You have the Garfield racing game, which, listen, I got to admit, the prior Garfield game was like, what, 15 years ago or something like that? And it sucked balls. But this new one actually looks sort of good. There's a ton of games coming out. This isn't even close to the total number, so I'm sure I missed one. If I did, leave it in the comments that I missed your game, and you can be all mad about it, or you can just celebrate that there's so many games that I couldn't just keep talking, because at some point, I got to feed these damn dogs. If you want to subscribe, do so. If you want to give it a thumbs up, do it. If you want to give it a thumbs down, do it on somebody else's fucking channel. Other than that, peace out. Enjoy the rest of your week.